Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you all are doing well. We're back at it again with a much shorter video this time, hopefully. It's going to be an update on the Lich Chober Chaber build. As you can see on the montage background here now, we are finally able to get into Pinnacles and do some Pinnacle content. It's great news. So part of this video I'll kind of spend walking you guys through some of the changes and optimizations that I did, and again, always welcome more feedback. The other part, of this video, I want to kind of talk about the future plan for my builds in POE2. As all of you know, I think next Friday this time we're going to have 0.3, and I'm honestly really excited about just the patch overall. There seems to be a lot of really cool kind of skill gem and support gem reworks. I think that by itself would really kind of change how this build would function or work. There's a lot of flexibilities and possibilities there. Additionally, in terms of like the keystone changes for the Giant's Blood and Resolute technique, I'm still kind of curious on how that would impact the build. Accuracy might be an issue, but they also mentioned that they just gave, warrior base classes straight up like an accuracy buff in, as they get close to the enemy. So we'll see again how everything works for this build. Going forward, if this build is not as viable in 0.3, which I really hope that's not the case. Maybe I'll instead kind of explore some mercenary-based kind of weapon swap, witch hunter kind of build instead. A little bit more off meta, but again, something that's hopefully is cheap, fun to build, and also to play. So without further ado, enjoy the montage and cheers. Alright, so now we're back in our hideout again, and let's maybe talk about what's different since the last time we looked at this build. So I'm going to kind of break this down a little bit differently here, but before we jump in, just kind of a quick reminder for folks. Essentially, this is a Chober Chaber build that takes advantage of double dipping in terms of getting bonuses from your minion damage. The last line here, increase and reduction to minion damage also affect you. But at the same time, if you only use this one, it's not really going to take you to endgame because of the bad base damage. So we are utilizing Giant's Blood to open up our free hand, and then we can get the Dark Defiler Scepter here, which on the last line there you'll see gain 5% of damage as chaos damage per undead minion. So you stack a lot of extra chaos damage as long as you have a lot of minions on the board, which you do, especially in mapping, because you are also running Unearth for at least 20 extra minions. So this combined with the persistent minions that you have, as well as some recovery, Riku mechanics, let you kind of essentially stay in the fray and run mapping and bossing. But again, just a very quick recap for the core idea of the build. So yeah, again, what's different since last time? I'm gonna start maybe from the offense side of things. Biggest difference since last time is finally finished my 4th set of Ascendancies, and it is quite a pain, to say the least. I think end of the day, the conclusion is that I think Trial of Sekima is still slightly better than Trials of Chaos, just because really you can run into some really bad modifiers in Trial of Chaos and you just get killed really quickly. Trial of Sekima, honestly, I will have to say that Honor is definitely the bottleneck here. The damage and survivability of the build and everything like that, it's honestly not bad at all, but it just kind of you really need to get honor resistance. And the last boss, the time boss, he's actually not that bad, to be honest. Just make sure you get the plus 40% movement speed in the boon. And then it becomes honestly kind of a bat of attrition, essentially, to see if you lose honor first or you kill him first. Because most of his attacks are honestly not that hard to avoid. But again, he's just going to kind of whittle you down in terms of, honor. But yeah, so quickly, once, you just have to repeatedly try a few times, you get to the end of the lab, you would essentially have Blackened Heart. So again, I think the 4 sets of Ascendancies you want to take is, Necromantic Conduit for the 30% extra chaos damage in the form of Unholy Might. You can boost this further with Blackened Heart. 4% increased magnitude of buff. So the way that you do the calculation here is essentially 1.04 multiplied by 30, because the base is 30. So per 100 mana. So essentially 1700. So it's essentially 17 times 4. Whatever that number is, it's going to be 1 point. That number multiplied by 30%. Overall, roughly right now, I have about, essentially translates to about extra 50% in terms of chaos damage. So this is pretty good. And this also kind of encourages you to stack mana on your gear to push your damage a little bit further. The Crystalline Phylactery here we talked about last time. This does not change. I think I'm still looking for, honestly, a better gem. The 15% minion damage and the stun threshold is really good, but the other two are kind of wasted. The accuracy I don't need because I'm not running, Skeleton Brutes or anything like that. And as of the next patch, this is also kind of useless. Ignite is not relevant for our build. And the other one is Soulless Form. We'll talk about it when we get to the defense, but the bypass here synergizes really well with Recoup. I think the more I'm dipping into kind of the defense, it's pretty critical. But again, make sure, overall, we definitely got kind of a damage boost once I finish up the 4th set of lab, and you can kind of get your Blackened Heart here. The second improvement that I made since last time is actually the gems. I'm going to throw up, again, the overlay on here and kind of highlight the gems that kind of needs your attention in terms of the key changes. But the combat rotation doesn't change that much, but in terms of bossing, I actually went ahead and slotted in Enraged Warcry here. And the idea here is that as long as you have at least 10 Rage, when you do a Sesame Cry next to a heavily stunned monster, or a boss in this case, not only is it going to give you guaranteed Aftershock for the next slam skill, which is Hammer of Gods, it's also just going to give you a straight up 30% more modifier. So the way that you kind of really make sure you consistently have enough rage before you go into Sesame Cry is solved via way of this ruby. You can probably get some on the trade side if you don't want to farm for it, but the gain 1 rage on melee hit is really important. The gain 3 rage when hit is kind of a nice quality of life, but this one combined with your Earthquake, actually, in terms of rage, actually lets you get over the breaking point a little bit faster. What I mean by that is if you don't have the +1 rage on from hit from the ruby, you're actually going to need to do 4 hits of Earthquake before you clear the 10 stack requirement. Whereas if you have that +1, you only need 3. So that's a breaking point there. Lets you stack up at least 10 a little bit earlier. And then, also when you have that, even when you're rolling slamming, well, it doesn't show up here because you're not attacking anything, but you can also, keep building rage without losing it. So going back, right, you have at least 10 rage that's relatively easy to stack. You still do your Sesame Cry, you get your guarantee Aftershock, you go for your Infernal Cry, which again has gives you back more rage, and then you do your Hammer of God. So the Infernal Cry support gem, by the way, doesn't change. It's just really the Enraged Warcry and the Sesame Cry. And then you go back to Hammer of God. So I kind of played around and kind of messed around with the support gem updates a little bit here. So not only are you getting this 35% more damage because you have a minimum of 10 rage, that rage comes from the Infernal Cry. You're also getting a stealth, not a stealth buff, but an extra 30% more damage from this support on the Sesame Cry applied to the Hammer of Gods, right? Concentrated effect is the same as before. Heavy Swing, I kind of moved it from Rolling Slam to Hammer of Gods because it's more potent. And Fist of War, I know I was using it on Rolling Slam, and Rolling Slam is not a spammable skill, but I think I kind of played around a little bit. I think it's still more efficient to keep it here, and that's another, I think, straight up 30% more damage. There we go. So it's just damage, 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 damage. And whatever you apply, you know, if I open up a fifth slot here, especially with patch 0.3, there might be some other interesting slot I can put in. If nothing else, I don't know, close combat or something, I just get up to the boss's face and click the button. Whatever it is, you double because of your aftershock. So this actually, if you'll notice in the previous Xesht videos, and the Olroth, this actually kind of almost guarantees you like close to 1 million damage, which is a bit of improvement from last time for bossing and just make things generally a little bit better. So that's kind of the offense side of things. In terms of the defense, we talked about last time, recoup and damage taken as life bypassing energy shield are both super, are very synergistic. So we went ahead and kind of invested deeper into that by replacing the yellow helm with Aziri's Disdain. The two key factors are like the two bottom affix. 10% damage taken bypasses energy shield, and gain 30% max life extra maximum energy shield. So first let's talk about the bypass, right? So with the 10% here from the helm, bypass energy shield, and 15% here, 10 is from the soulless form, 10% bypass, and another 5% from heavy buffer, which is here. You are essentially saying, 25% of your damage goes to your health, while 75% of your damage goes to energy shield. If you think about the way that works, so if you keep that, so let's say, if you take 100 damage, 25 goes to health, 75 goes to energy shield. But then if you recall, we have 69% of damage recoup as life. So if you really think about it, you're taking 25 on health and you're recouping 69%. You're taking 75 on health, on energy shield, and you're also recouping 69%. So effectively, from a health perspective, you're recouping way more than 100%. As well as your shield, whatever 69 divided by 75 is, that's the actual effective percentage of your recoup applied to energy shield. So, this is one way to kind of further, make more obvious the recoup effect, because the damage is split, but the recoup is applied as the full damage to both your energy shield and your health. So you're double dipping your recoup, as we discussed previously, but now you're leaning much more into it. So this is really why, you'll notice like on Xesht, and I'll put some final kind of mapping montage and whatever at the end of the video, you'll notice that I'm actually pretty tanky in terms of recoup. And that actually kind of takes me to the other aspect of the Aziri's Disdain, is that, okay, I'm good with recoup, but I still need a good base amount of health and energy shield. So this last, affix there really helps with that. So right now, with the passive tree and everything else updated, I have about 3k shield, 2k life. That is a pretty good reservoir of kind of effective HP. Honestly, I think there's definitely more optimizations that I can do. I think, in fact, my boot here is armor, energy shield, and then honestly, I don't need the armor. And probably, in terms of affix, if you look at the amulet here, I can probably definitely go with more, plus percentage to energy shield if I need to. So some more optimizations there, but already at 5k, you're running around the map again. As long as you're not too boneheaded or you're picking really bad affixes, you most of the time actually feel really, relatively very good, tankiness. I don't want to say super tanky because, that's, but, pretty good tankiness. So last thing, in terms of the changes that I made is just really cleaning up the passive tree a little bit. I think last time when you guys looked at the passive tree, there's, honestly some kind of non-optimization. I'd say, there's some stuff here around this side of the minion tree, and there's, some stuff here that's, might or might not be needed. So I clean all of that up. But again, the idea is the same, right? If you recall, my weapon set 2 is my primary weapon set. And it's essentially like a healthy split of, taking all the damage nodes from minions, as well as taking the nodes for the recoup, and some stun threshold as I needed, as well as the keystone here. Whereas for weapon set 1, which is my secondary weapon set, which we use for snapshotting the bone constructs, we take more resistance, survivability, health, and let's say increase in duration, right, for the bone construct timer. One interesting thing is that, let me switch back, is also that, again, going to the primary weapon set, we can actually kind of take the inner set here for reduced duration of earthquake explosion. Again, just a bit more of a quality of life. Okay, so with the build update explanation wrapped up, I guess the last part is it's kind of a free-form discussion about the plans for 0.3. I think, as you guys might have realized by now, if you look at the montage, the build right now as is, it's Pinnacle, it's viable for Pinnacle, but really not deep into it. T0 is okay, and that's the footage that's from T1, probably doable, but I feel like I'm running into a ceiling pretty soon and kind of actually running out of ways to further boost my damage, unless I invest a lot. I think in terms of things I could still do, maybe look into plus levels to minion, but if you look at the uniques that I have, it's pretty tight where I can even get them, maybe on because I don't have the helms anymore either. I could also go for like legendary jewels, or sorry, unique jewels, for some of the specific skills. But again, it's I kind of feel like I'm kind of capping out here, unless I do a different approach to the build itself. So I think 0.3 would actually be a very much needed breath of fresh air to kind of open things up. Obviously, we don't know the details on the skill gems or the supporting gems, but I'm really hoping for some cool, unique rework combined with the level or tiering of the supporting gem, going from tier 1, 2 to 3, giving extra effects, giving me some just much more reliable ways to apply chaos debuff, because the way that Withering Touch is being implemented in this league, I really don't know what they were thinking. It's really bad. And again, like we talked about before, extraction only applies for spells, and chaos infusion really cucks the other aspects of your damage, because we're really a mix of physical and chaos. If you look at for example right now, we're almost half, to be honest, right? Like 1600 physical, 1200 for chaos. If I get my bone construct out, I think chaos actually goes above that. So we're really 50-50 in terms of physical and chaos split. But yeah, I think there are still so outside of the gems, I think a few good things and a few bad things that we're gonna need to work around. The good thing is obviously Earth is getting buffed. That's pretty good. The minions got some leap or something, which is kind of like a good quality of life, because if you walk too fast past your on Earth, the skeleton minions, the bone constructs actually unsummon themselves, so you have to resummon them with new corpses, which is kind of a pain. So this kind of helps with mobility. But I think the much more important aspect is also that you can now summon skeletal minions, bone constructs from the corpses of your skeletal minions. So this is gonna drastically increase your bossing damage, which is really kind of the bottleneck of the build right now, because honestly I don't need a lot more for mapping. I'm okay with the speed of the mapping, and I really actually kind of enjoy this almost like Dark Soul-esque play style. So yeah, that'll be pretty critical and good. But obviously there are some nerfs on paper that we're aware of, especially with Giant's Blood. So when it comes to Giant Blood and the changes for 0.3, I think we're kind of, not being impacted as much as some of the other more traditional Giant's Blood build. We're only running about 230 strength to enable dual wielding the Chober Chaber. So that really only works out to about, I don't know, like 115 health loss or something like that. That's really just equating to, I don't know, like one piece of gear with or without plus life, or even a piece of gear with higher tier plus life versus a piece of gear with lower tier plus life. So it's the how you make up for that health loss is not as significant. Whereas diverting a little bit, if you're running like a more traditional Giant's Blood build, you're trying to stack up to 400 or 500 strength, the penalty becomes a bit more severe, right? I don't know, 200 and 250 health loss, not considering like the extra bonus that you might get from plus percentage to health. Personally, I feel like maybe people do make this nerf to be a bit larger than it appears to be, but again, I'm kind of on the fence on that one, because it is still a non-negligible nerf. I will say one thing is, the jury's still out because we don't actually know what they're adding on the passive tree. If they're adding more nodes for plus percentage to max life, because there are some in the passive tree, and I know that they're pretty adamant about not adding any source of flat life on the tree. That's fine, but even with the extra plus percentage to max life, maybe that's why they have to offset this a little bit. So I'm still pretty positive about the patch overall. But that being said, honestly, what worries me a little bit more is the Resolute technique change, and now just doubled the benefit that you get from accuracy. There's a formula for accuracy, obviously, and it's also coupled with the innate invasion rating of the monster itself. It's a little bit complicated, but yeah, because honestly, right now, I don't know if I have any source of accuracy. If I look at my gear, I don't think I do, to be honest. Accuracy obviously is not a hard. I think that's a prefix, right? Prefix get. But again, I need to get it somewhere. And with the way that all of the unique here are taking out my slots, 1, 2, 3, 4. It really took me a while to kind of max out all my elemental resist already, as well as getting reasonable chaos. In fact, I had to get this Forsaken Bangle to make up for me not capping out chaos resist, just because we're, again, especially vulnerable to chaos because of our reliance on energy shield. So trying to shove in accuracy in this build is going to be kind of a pain. The other way, I guess, right, with Resolute technique change is that I would still need some source of accuracy. I could path to here, I think, finesse, because I'm stacking intelligence, but again, that's going to eat up passive nodes, passive points, which kind of takes me to my final concern. Is actually they're changing the passive tree a lot. So I think they're actually reducing the number of attributes on the highway, which is good, and I hope that's the case, because if the tree is larger, I'm going to need points to path all the way down here to Giant's Blood. Hopefully they keep the number of the attribute points needed to go down here the same. But even then, for me to go from the core up to here, I'm assuming maybe I'll need to put in more points or something. Take out the points here to path to Resolute technique and just shift it over here to the accuracy bonus. No, actually, I take that back. I'm still going to need Resolute technique, and I need to squeeze out points also to come to this finesse, right? Because Resolute technique just doubles that. So yeah, a few things to look into, but my hope is that with 0.3, the ceiling for this build continues to go up, and we can push to tier 2 or even tier 3. Because honestly, end of the day, it's not a great unique, but one of the things I really enjoy about this is it's off meta. It takes a bit of thought, but this is the best weapon you can get. A lot of build, if you're really relying on rare weapons, when you get to the end game, it's always like, okay, I need a 30 div quarterstaff, or I need a 30 div hammer, right? That's in reality, like, that just have 1 extra or 2 extra suffix or prefix that I need, or even just like a better tier version of the same suffix, right? It's kind of like you're getting to the flattened part of diminishing return instead of in terms of how much cost you're investing into the build. You don't have that here. This is the best hammer you're gonna get, right? Just buy, like, I don't know, 5 to 10 Chober Chaber off of trade, and now trade is better. That's like 50 exalts or something like that. Just vol all of them. You're probably gonna get a few. In fact, I have one right here, and just the course of playing, I have another one here, and guess what? Corrupted 3 sockets. I did this, right? Like, I got this from like a reliquary or whatever, and just corrupted it. So this is relatively easy to find, and and you don't have to worry about this anymore. You can just kind of think about other sources to optimize without really trying to And that's actually kind of one of the reasons why the build is relatively cheaper, you know, because generally speaking, yellow weapons are like the biggest source of currency sink for optimization. Yeah, so I think, you know, that kind of wraps up some of my initial thoughts about the patch. Overall, I think the patch is a great buff. People overplay, you know, when they look at the patch notes, they're like, oh crap, there are nerfs. I think if you really pay attention and kind of look at what they're doing with like the skill gems, like a lot of the movements and kind of the, you know, the non-quantifiable buff, like the way that, you know, blocking animation works and all of that, all of the stuff like on paper that you can quantify are really just kind of minor adjustments. I really think that 0.3 is a great direction forward, and it's definitely a buff on a lot of fronts. And yeah, with that being said, finally, if this build runs out of leg, you know, in 0.3, maybe I'll probably pivot over to a Witch Hunter build, you know, something down here. My first character was Monk, that I kind of played on the east side of the tree. Second character is kind of here, north and west. So third one, I really want to kind of mess around with Witch Hunter a little bit. You know, I'm gonna skip all the deepest tower hack, and I think that unique is getting disabled in 0.3 anyway. But you know, maybe try to take advantage as much as I can with first approach and decimating strike, and you know, just try to one shot everything. So that's also gonna be fun. But yeah, stay tuned. I'm gonna, you know, try to periodically release out some new contents when I can, between, you know, being a dad and the job. But yeah, I hope y'all stay safe, healthy, and see you guys all again in 0.3. Cheers.